What is up, you guys, and welcome to Shadow Part 3. So this one is a big one. This one is super, super important. I mean, yes, they are all important because you need the other two parts to really understand and even do this part. But this is when the integration, or should I say the reintegration, and the healing starts happening. And some of what I say in this part may surprise you, and some of it may seem really simple and too good to be true, I guess. Some of it may seem like, really? Like, what? Like, why would I do that? But just hear me out, just listen to this part, and I really want you to take notes on any questions you have, anything that you think of while listening to this. You can even write down the techniques and steps we go over on how to reintegrate your shadow traits and all of that if you'd like. And yeah, so I may do another live after this just to answer any questions that you guys have about Shadow Part 3 and all of that. And then our last live of the month will be on the 30th. And that is just our October wrap up where we just go over everything that we've learned over the month, all of the things that we've realized, and any further questions or things that you guys want to know about from what we've went over. We'll be talking a lot about what we're doing in November. We'll be prepping for what we'll be doing in November. And I have decided that I will be going over the different shadow aspects of each sign in November, the one that I've been announcing for weeks now that I'm super excited to share with you guys, and that I think you guys will find so helpful and so interesting. It really is something just amazing, and I've been working so hard on it, and I think you guys will really end up liking it as well. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. So this is all about how to reintegrate these traits that you've been noticing about yourself, that you've become aware of, that are in your shadow over this last month now. So basically, we're going to do this step by step. I'm going to give you tons of steps, and some of them are in order on like things that you can do in order, and some of them are kind of like just extra things that you can do as well. But basically, they're kind of in order. So I would definitely go in this order. And the first thing that I want to talk about, it may seem like stupid when I say it at first. It may seem very like common sense, or just very simple and easy, and you may like roll your eyes when you hear it, but it's so much more. So just keep listening. Just don't completely shut it off as soon as you hear it. But it's acceptance. And yeah, that seems like it's very obvious. That seems like it's stating the obvious, and it seems really, annoying and stupid. But guess what? It's true. And it's a lot more than just acceptance as well. It is really like being able to accept your shadow. And so I've been giving you guys kind of like sneak peeks of this, little teasers of this, and one of like the most famous quotes by Carl Jung is, "What you resist persists." And that is all about your shadow. Like that is the game of your shadow in a nutshell right there. So when you're thinking about it truly, and we're going to go over it a little bit more in a second as well, I'm going to get a little bit more detailed about what I mean by acceptance, because it's not just like, oh yeah, I have a shadow. Okay. It's so much deeper than that, and it's so much more than that. So basically, it's not resisting your shadow. The only reason, this is the whole secret, this is the whole game to your shadow that I've been saving for this moment for you guys. The whole reason, when you really think about it, when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of your shadow, the whole reason it's there in the first place is because we're resisting it. We're resisting it, we're fighting it, we're suppressing it, we're trying to control it, we're projecting it. All of those are forms of resistance, right? So when you accept it, it's not resisting it anymore. It's letting it be. It's understanding that it's a part of you, and that is okay. And we're not resisting it. We're not fighting it. We're not suppressing it. Like, we are just letting it be there. So that is the very first step, and the most crucial step to shadow integration. And some things can be hard to accept about yourself. If you are accepting that you are not good enough, that's something hard to accept about yourself. And I've had to do it a lot of different times in different ways. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, because you're probably thinking, Tani, like, why would I tell myself that I'm not good enough? Why would I accept that about myself? If I'm not good enough, then why even keep going? Like, what is the purpose, and we're going to get to that, I promise. So don't throw this out the window just yet. Don't start thinking like, this bitch is crazy. Like, she wants me to tell myself that I'm not good enough. Hell no. Like, and that's your ego right there. But we're going to get into it. So just keep listening. So anyways, the next step is looking at your shadow traits and what caused them objectively. So, really going back and journaling, reflecting, however you want to do so at this point, and really going back and looking at the situation objectively without any good or bad thinking, without any right or wrong thinking, and really looking at the situation from every point of view, right? Looking at all sides of the situation. And this really goes into Libra season. This really goes into, because Libra season is, shadow season. And so, when you really go back and look at all sides of a situation, you can see things a little bit differently than you would just from your perspective, right? From your perspective, you thought X, Y, and Z happened and it was traumatizing and you were the victim and these people were the villain and just all these different things. And you're basically putting yourself in that role, which causes more chaos, causes more issues and with your shadow self and with your ego than you realize. And so when you really go back and look at it without good or bad thinking in a very objective way, you begin to see other sides. You begin to see other explanations of why this happened, right? So this is very, very important for you to do to be able to understand the situation better. So for instance, right? So let's take, one of my biggest things to do with my sexuality and to do with a lot of my own shadow traits is when I was in 6th grade, which I've talked a little bit about this before. I danced at a school dance very openly, and I was just starting to discover my sexuality. I had been thinking about sex probably since I was in elementary school, probably from like 2nd or 3rd grade. It was just something was in me that I was like, sex. I want to know more about it. What is it? And I was just always like, intrigued by it, interested in it. And then I also remember in 6th grade when I started hitting puberty and my hormones started coming out, I was like, oh my God, like I like all these boys, they're so attractive. And I started dancing and I was just starting to find my sexuality, right? And so me and my friend at the time, my so-called friend, I was like friends with these 2 other girls and everyone was like, oh, you guys are the popular girls, and cliques were starting to form and just all this stupid kid stuff, right? And so I was hanging out with these 2 girls and me and one of the girls made up a dance to the Ying Yang Twins, the From the Windows to the Walls song, right? It's still like one of my favorite songs. But anyways, so we made up this dance and and I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew like shake my butt, shake my hips. Like I didn't even know how to really dance and I would just go with the music, right? And so we made up this dance together and we got to the dance, we got to the school dance like a week later and the song came on and everyone knew, we had told everyone, we made up a dance to this song and everyone was cheering us on, dance, 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 and she wouldn't do it. And so they started looking at me to dance and I was like, ugh. And so finally I did and I was like, screw it. And I got in the middle of all these kids and literally broke it the fuck down to the Windows to the Walls by the Ying Yang Twins. And part of our dance not only involved flipping our hair and, shaking our butts, but also getting on the ground on all fours, on our hands, on our knees, shaking our hair around, popping our butts, and basically I looked like a stripper, right? Let's just be real about it. I looked like a stripper. And for the longest time, and then everyone was just I got up after I was done dancing and everyone was just looking at me, jaws dropped to the floor, eyes wide open. Did she really just do that? I mean, I'm an 11, 12-year-old dancing like that in front of all these other 11 and 12-year-old kids. And, it was only probably 2 months into the school year. And so we were all getting ready to know, we were all getting to know each other still because the middle school I went to, only some of the kids from my elementary school ended up going there. Most were in a different middle school district. So I had to kind of make all new friends. And yeah, and then basically the next week, they all started calling me a whore and saying that I danced like a slut. And I had also kissed a boy that night in front of everyone, right after I did the dance. And so basically I was known as a whore, I was known as a slut, and I was bullied very, very badly for the next 2 years of my life until I eventually had to switch to the other middle school that I wish I would have gone to in the first place, because that's where all my friends went. And so it was just a crazy situation, but looking back now, I can objectively see why that was freaky to a lot of the people that were watching, a lot of the kids that were watching, and I can see how they were just kids too. And a lot of them were just going with the flow. They were all trying to fit in. They were also hitting puberty. They also didn't know what to do with how they were acting, and they don't know the effect that they had caused, by doing all of that. And I get it. So I can look back and that's just like a quick example. I'm not going to get too into it, but just being objective when you look back on things and looking at things from other people's side of the story, even if it's hard because you didn't experience it as them. You don't know what they were going through. But like if it has something to do with your parents, look at it from their side of the story because you know them a little bit more. You know what they were going through. And maybe you don't know. Maybe there's some things you don't know about. And we're going to get to another way of how you can do this in a minute as well. And then like another example really quick is how to do this objectively, look at it objectively, is actually just this past month, a memory came back to me that I shared with you guys in the group of where my little sister was first born, and I had been an only child. My mom had drugged me up to Kentucky, and I met my stepdad, and I hated him, and then they ended up having a child a few years later, and I remember, after she was born, me and my middle sister, my first little sister, never got along when we were younger. Like, I could not stand her, and I never really knew why, and I really thought about it this past month, and it was because I already couldn't stand Kentucky. I already couldn't stand her dad, and I felt like an outcast basically. And I had this memory come back to me because I was thinking I had a lot of feelings this month of just feeling not good enough, feeling unimportant, feeling just invisible basically. And so I was wondering, when did this happen as a child? And I had this memory come back to me of when my mom first had my little sister, and we lived with my mom's mother down in Atlanta at the time, and I walked in to go spend time with my mom because I had been spending a lot of time with my grandmother, and I didn't really want to spend time with her anymore. I wanted to be around my mom, and I went to go find my mom, and their room was down in the basement, and I walked down there. I walked in the bedroom, and her, my stepdad, and my baby sister are all in the bed watching TV, and she's holding my baby sister, and and I'm just kind of standing there looking at them, and they are all sleeping in the same room. They're all in the same bed. They're all cuddled up and stuff. And my mom is like, "Tani, can you go get me something for the baby?" And I'm like, and I kind of just felt and I remember just feeling completely left out, completely upset, completely mad. I don't want to go get you this thing. Screw that baby. That's what I was thinking at the time. You know what I mean? And so, but looking back now, my mom loved me. You know what I mean? I know my mom loved me. And even if she didn't, you know what I mean? Looking at it from an objective view, she just had a baby. She was worn out. She was, the baby needed more attention than I did at that moment in time. And, and that's why it's good to go back and look at things from all sides. You know what I mean? And so that is what I mean by looking at the situation objectively, basically. So anyways, and this will also help you with forgiveness. This will help you with forgiving people and letting shit go from the past. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't mean that trait is going to go away right away, but you're going to be able to spot it a little bit more and do something about it when it happens instead of letting it manifest into, fear and resistance and ego and all of that. So anyways, the next one is basically when these traits or feelings come up, it's important to express them, right? So expressing them in some way, instead of burying them or projecting them on someone else. So for instance, if your shadow trait that you're working on is powerlessness, instead of letting your ego take over and tell you, no, I got this, I'm not powerless over this, I can do this, I got this, I'll show them, you know what I mean? Just stop right there. Because if you get to that point, you're basically, you're essentially, what you're essentially doing is pushing that down again by fighting it. So what you could do in this situation, as crazy as it may sound, and as opposite as it may sound of what society teaches us, is to accept this feeling and not resist it. If you're feeling powerless, then there may be an actual situation that is triggering that trait for you, in which fear is driving you to control something that you may not actually be able to. And once you accept that, yeah, you are powerless over some situations, over a lot of situations, and over whatever situation in your childhood has brought on this trait of powerlessness for you, that's when the true healing begins, and you can clearly see what you may be powerless over and what you are not. And some traits may require a different form of expression, like, for instance, anger, right? But first off, anger is derived from some form of fear, as always, that could also be from the same thing, like a trait like powerlessness, right? Anger is a manifestation of the trait of powerless. So basically, anger is a manifestation of something deeper. So that's what you're really wanting to integrate, is whatever that deeper thing is. But if anger is a manifestation of it, and you do want to integrate it, like say you suppress your anger or something like that, instead of, because dealing with a trait like anger can sometimes be dangerous. So that's why with this one, it would take something a little bit differently. So expressing your anger in a healthier way would be, like basically running or some kind of physical activity, punching bags, some sort of physical expression that isn't dangerous and that can help express this trait instead of taking it out on someone else, punching someone, hurting yourself, all of that. So that is something that, but first you would want to get to the root cause of this anger, like I was saying before, because anger is normally hiding something deeper. It's from fear. Anger is derived from fear. And so it's hiding something deeper, basically. So anyway, so sexuality can be like another tricky one as well with expressing it. So like obviously if you have these urges to do these really crazy sexual things, like can't just, go up to somebody on the street and be like, hey, let's fuck. I mean, you totally can, but it would be more of like, say you don't exert yourself sexually, say you suppress your sexuality in some way because you're scared of it, or, you were taught that it's bad in some way. And so basically this would look like making the first move, you know what I mean? And really getting in touch with that part of yourself and what that part of you wants you to do, and working with expressing that in other ways that, are obviously healthy, and not just, going and fucking people's boyfriends or whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's a healthy way to do it is basically what I'm saying. So, and like I said, we may, if you guys want to do a live on this part alone, just to ask questions and stuff, let me know. And we can totally do that. So anyways, the next one is making a conscious effort. So you want to bring these scary parts of yourself into your conscious personality, because they are a part of you to begin with. And like I've been saying, like I've said in all the other parts, your shadow wants to be integrated. It wants to be a part of your life. It wants to be a part of your personality in a conscious, healthy way, not hidden in the back, coming out through you projecting and blaming other people for everything, right? And so you want to show them that you, basically these traits in you, that you care, and treat them as like almost like a wounded child, even if it seems ugly or savage, like an ugly or savage trait to integrate at first. And you can find ways around it to kind of meet in the middle that has nothing to do with resisting it, right? And so basically what we're doing here is anything but resisting. And resisting can manifest in suppressing, fighting, blaming, projecting, all of that, right? Triggering. And so, triggering is almost like, it would be the action after triggering, right? Which would look like resisting. So when something triggers you, it's important to look within and figure out what you're resisting within yourself, or what you don't like about that's, a part of you. And so basically you just do not want to resist your shadow traits anymore. You want to express them healthily, and you want to, meet them in the middle, make them, integrate them, and make them a part of you, make them a part of your personality. So anyways, but I just want you guys to know that, your shadow traits will always pop up throughout your life. You're doing shadow work throughout your whole life. You know what I mean? So just remember that. So it's really important to be more honest with yourself, to be more open with yourself, because your shadow work will continue. Even after this, you will get triggered at times, which will be another opportunity for shadow work. And everything you know, everything that you don't want to be, you are in some way, right? Like, even like if we take like, oh my God, like if you have this weird thing against like serial killers or something, let's say, if you're like, oh my God, how could you do something, like how could you kill a person, and it like really really triggers you, like really really bad, and it's like, you are that person too. You could be, right? There's something inside of you if that's triggering you that bad. Like obviously that's a fear of society. Like normally people are scared of serial killers, like most people are, because that's like a societal fear, right? That disrupts the society, and that, could disrupt life itself. And so, but if it's like a really triggering thing for you, then there's something inside of you that knows that you could be capable of that too. Not that you would ever do it per se, but that you could be capable of that too. Therefore, you hate that part about yourself. And so you're projecting it on to other people that have done it, right? So, anyways, basically everything that you don't want to be, or that you don't like to be, you are. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so the last exercise here is something that you would have to really kind of probably practice at or take time out to do, because it involves meditation. So you could meditate on the childhood experience that caused your shadow traits, and feel those feelings again. Like when these feelings come up, when you get triggered, when you feel your shadow coming up, when you see your shadow, when when you recognize your shadow in your everyday life situations, it's important to feel that and not shake it off or have your ego be like, no, that's not it, or no, that's not what we're going to do here. And so it's important to feel those feelings. But with this last exercise, if you wanted to meditate back to the experience that you had that caused these traits that you're working on, for this shadow season, feel those feelings again, but keep your knowledge that you have today, and basically hold your past self's hand, while you're feeling this, while you're reliving this situation, and while you're feeling those feelings again, and just feel them. Don't suppress them. And remember, they are not bad or good. And, you can journal and reflect on all the different ways that this shadow trait and what caused it has shaped your life and you as a person, or even changed your life in beautiful ways, because your shadow has helped you as well. And that's what I want you guys to really see, the different ways that it's helped you and how integrating it can help you even more. So yes, if it hadn't happened, then life would be very different maybe, but it did happen. And that's something you can't change because it was supposed to happen. And so, for example, my fear of powerlessness has helped me find true power from being powerless. And when you really think about it, one who can accept that they have no power with something or in something actually has all the power. So that's just something for you guys to think about or pick apart. And I want to share one last thing with you guys really quick, one last little story that may help you understand this. So basically, I'm going to use Matt, my boyfriend, as an example, who a lot of you guys know. Basically, he's told me this story before, but I'm sure he doesn't mind me sharing it with you guys. But basically, one of the first times he consciously did shadow work, he was actually giving his lead at an AA meeting, because he's a recovering alcoholic. And he was actually giving his lead, and one of his friends was there, and he was talking about his life. And after the meeting, his friend was like, hey, like, did something happen with your sister? And he was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I don't know, you just seem to mention your sister a lot. And he was like, really? And she was like, yeah, like I don't know, you just seem to bring that up like a lot. And he was like, he kind of thought about it, and he didn't really realize he had done that. So for like the next week, that really bothered him, and he was really thinking back to like that time period when his sister was born, and how he felt, and this, that, and the other. And he realized that he really felt not good enough, like unworthy, basically unworthy of love. He felt like his parents didn't love him like they loved his sister more. And so, and this has like really played out through various different parts of his life as well, and caused a lot of issues, and but also, you know, helped him in other ways. But basically he realized this, and so he said that he sat there for like 2 days, like didn't even go into work because he was just a mess. He like felt completely unworthy, and he was just like, and basically he was resisting it, he was fighting it. And he said finally that he was sitting there on the deck one day, and basically, and I used to not understand this. I remember he first told me this when we first met, and one of the, you know, in the very beginning when we first started hanging out, and I never really understood this until I went through it consciously myself. And so he said he was sitting there on the deck one day, and he was really picking it apart. Like, okay, he's doing the whys, basically. Like, why do I feel unworthy? Why this, why that, right? And so, and then he kind of got to the point of like, why are you fighting it? You know, like what, all of this shit that you feel, being angry, depressed, like feeling just like a wreck, not wanting to go into work, is all because you're fighting it, right? And so you're resisting feeling unworthy. You're telling yourself, that's not true, I'm worthy. That's not true, I'm worthy, right? And so why didn't they see that I was worthy? Why didn't they see that I was good enough, right? And so finally he was like, okay, yeah, I'm fucking unworthy. And he said it, he just felt it like sink all the way down his body. And it just like, he felt like each wall just kind of breaking down. And then he felt this huge relief, like this huge weight just lifted off of his shoulders. And he was like, and as soon as that all happened, he kind of realized none of that even matters because I am worthy. And that's kind of the trick of it. It's like once you accept whatever it is you're resisting, that it's a part of you and that you feel that way, and like, yeah, maybe you are that. Yeah, you know, you are whatever you're resisting, right? Because you're feeling it, right? And or you believe that about yourself, or someone else believes that about you, whatever. Once you accept that, once you quit resisting it, once you quit fighting it, it's like you can start seeing clearly. It kind of stings at first, right? It kind of hurts at first. You kind of feel sad for a little bit. You kind of feel like giving up, but you also feel like a weight has just been lifted. You're at like a total surrender point, and you're like, wow, I can breathe now. I feel so much lighter now. Like I'm not struggling anymore. I'm not fighting anymore. Because like I've said before, you know, this back and forth between our brain, the suppression of our shadow and the fighting of our shadow takes up so much conscious energy. Our brain thinks of millions of things every second. There's millions of things going on in our brain, and we're only conscious of like, I think like less than 50 things. And so there's just this war that we aren't even conscious of, right? And it takes up so much energy. And then once you start becoming conscious of these things, you really free up that space for something new to develop and grow, and for healing, and for this oneness with yourself, you know, and really being able to accept yourself, the dark and the light, for who you really are, and being okay with that, and being able to express that in those ways. So anyways, hopefully this all made sense. Like I said, if you have any questions, write them down in your journal. We'll talk about them in the next live. But yeah, I love you guys. This was Shadow Part 3. Hopefully it was very helpful. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it gave you some ideas on how to start integrating and healing your shadow traits. Definitely keep me updated. Basically, your soul work for the next, week or two is to do these different techniques, and you can share them in your daily challenges, how they've been working. And yeah, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next live. Bye.